And we're live. It's the Revved Up Sports podcast, a Detroit Pistons podcast to be exact. I think I just did the same exact thing I did in the first episode.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, but this is Hudson and
Ryan.
And we're here for episode 2, part 1. And last night we lost to the Toronto Raptors. The Toronto Raptors, for missing Gary Trent Jr., they look pretty solid.
Yeah, they don't have a bad team.
No.
I think a real factor for us staying in that game alone is Alec Burks. The role he played coming in, it's the next man up mentality.
Yeah.
He came in, 15, 16 points?
Something like that, yeah.
Off the bench. He was great on defense for us, too. Mm-hmm. So that really helped.
It's a great pickup. That's something that Troy Weaver has seen that I didn't see. He played well on the Knicks, but you just never know if that's going to translate. Yep. And it seems like we need a guy that can get his own bucket, like Bojan, and Cade can be that guy. Yep. But Alec Burks getting buckets.
Oh, yeah.
I like it. So with episode 2, we were coming up with topics, and we came across talking about free agents. And so part 1 of episode 2 is going to be about possible free agent pickups. How about we start it off with one of your first ideas, Ryan?
All right. So I came up with a couple. My first one, Carmelo Anthony.
I love it.
Just because he's always wanted to be a Piston. So that'll definitely draw interest from his side.
For sure.
But I think he could definitely take on the role of being a Udonis Haslem for us.
Okay.
So like what Udonis Haslem has done in Miami, he's like 40 plus years old right now.
Yeah.
But he's a bench warmer pretty much. But he's just there to teach the young guys how to do things and how to be a good NBA player. And clearly Miami knows what they're doing with that because they've had success with all their young guys.
Yeah.
And I think Carmelo coming in would definitely help, like Isaiah Stewart, definitely in the sense of shooting the ball and knowing how to do certain post moves that Stu has never really had to do before in his career.
Not really.
Until you add a guy like Carmelo who is that versatile.
My only thing with Carmelo, and his son who just got an offer from Syracuse, which is awesome. Congrats. My only concern with Carmelo is that he's too busy coaching up his son. And I just don't know if he's in physical shape at this point to be on an NBA roster. But the thing is, he's not going to play huge minutes anyway. No. So it's not a huge problem. But we've been dealing with injuries, lately. I mean, Isaiah Stewart was just announced earlier today that he's out for 2 weeks with a sprained toe. So this team is an active Pistons team where there's going to be a lot of injuries, it seems. So every man's going to have to step up. My only thing is I just don't know if Carmelo is NBA body as he's getting a little bit older.
Yeah, but you look at Udonis Haslem.
He's not jacked.
He's not jacked. Well, I mean, he is jacked, but he's not jacked.
Yeah, not NFL jacked or something like that.
Not like DK Metcalf.
Yeah. I do think he would mix well. I think Bojan also kind of plays a lot like Carmelo. So it would be cool to have those two guys on one team and see. And also a great guy for Carmelo to get with is Sadiq Bey.
Yeah.
Sadiq has been struggling, especially as of recent, finding his own shot. Finally, against the Toronto Raptors, there was times where he finally was letting the game come to him, not force the game by backing down in the paint.
And to add on to that, you look at the experience level that Carmelo has. He's a Hall of Famer. You add a Hall of Famer to this roster, a guy who knows how to do things, knows how to win. I mean, granted, he still doesn't have a chip or anything, but he knows what he needs to do to win. And you add that with Bojan, two good vets right there.
Yeah.
And you look at Bay and Stu and Bagley. I think you have something there.
It's a good recipe. I think. My first guy is very similar to Carmelo Anthony. When I was looking at free agents of who we could pick up, I wanted to fill a specific role, and it was kind of what Bojan does for us. But I wanted another option, a bigger guy that can spread the floor. So I went with LaMarcus Aldridge. I think he can be a key bench player. His last year's stat line with the Brooklyn Nets was 13 points, 55% shooting, which is something the Pistons need, a consistent scorer that isn't going to have a whole lot of cold streaks. And then he had 1 block and 5 boards, so he'll help on that end. But I think he would play great off the bench with Duren, because Duren can't give you outside shooting, but LaMarcus can stretch the floor. And also with Duren, I think eventually he might start over Stu. So I think Aldridge will also play well with Stu, because Casey loves pick and roll bigs like we were talking about, and guards as we were talking about last episode. And Stu can't do that, which hopefully Aldridge can fill that role. We're starting to see Stu stretch the floor a little bit, but he's just not what Aldridge, I think, could do for us.
Yeah, the only downside to that is Aldridge gets injured a lot.
Does he? Yeah.
He gets injured a lot. And the reason why he had such a big role last year with Brooklyn is because KD and Kyrie were pretty much non-existent on that roster last year. And then you add in Ben Simmons later on. Ben Simmons, non-existent, didn't even play.
Yeah.
And so they pretty much had nobody, which relied on vets like Aldridge and like Blake Griffin and others to step up and do something. And I mean, 13 points, good for him given his age. But can he do that consistently on a team that may not even need him?
Yeah, well, I think Cade in specific needs him. I think guys like Sadiq and Bojan and Isaiah Livers are supposed to be a guy that Cade can try to drive and pass out on. But Sadiq has been so inconsistent this season, and I'm starting to get worried about our juniors, our junior class. I'm starting to get worried about those guys, just because Sadiq, he gets hot for a game and then he just kind of falls away.
Yeah.
And a guy like Aldridge hopefully could be a consistent guy that Cade can drive and pop out to. But that's just a matter of Troy Weaver, that's in the hands of Troy Weaver. What's our number 3 guy?
Number 3, very bold. A lot of Pistons fans might hate me for this one, but bring back Sekou. Give him another chance.
Yeah.
He's like, what, 19, 20, our age right now?
Yeah, I think he might be 21 now. Yeah. But yeah, he's still young.
He's still very young. And I mean, we gave him a shot, but we didn't give him the shot he really should have deserved. Because think about our current roster, and then you add a young guy in like him, that might actually elevate his game to another level that he hasn't been at yet. Because with our old roster, it's like, oh, we're expecting him to do everything. He's supposed to be the next Giannis. He's going to be the next big thing. And we put so much pressure on him as a kid, and then he does kind of nothing pretty much, and we're like, ew, we're kind of like, let's toss in the red flag here, get rid of him.
Yeah, my only thing with him, the only guys that we really have that we didn't have when he was here is Cade, Ivy, and Duren. Other than that, it's some similar guys. But the thing with Sekou is by the time he left, he got traded Killian's rookie year, Stu's rookie year. That last month he played for us, he just looked like he did not give a squat. Like he would go out on the court, and I think he had one big dunk that year before he was traded to, I believe, the Lakers. The only thing is, I think it's an effort thing with him. I just don't know if he has the drive to, because if you look at a guy like Giannis, there's a lot of comparisons to him and Giannis. But Giannis just has that extra gear. I mean, if you look at Giannis from his rookie year to now, I mean, it's incredible. Where Sekou looks the same as when he was a rookie, and it's been nearly 4 years now. So it's like, I do love, because he's built very similar to a rookie Giannis. I just don't know if he has that extra gear to become, to take that next step as a good bench player.
I think a lot of that comes down to coaching. You look at I mean, this is a good comparison, I guess. You look at Dennis Rodman when he left the Pistons there. He was a young kid. The team was like, yeah, we're moving these guys on. And Dennis always thought, like, we're supposed to stay together. We're a family. So being a young kid, he kind of was like getting shifted out. Not that he didn't do anything bad, because he was a great player for us. I wish he would have stayed. But it's kind of like that situation is similar to what Sekou had experienced, because Sekou probably thought, like, this is a family kind of thing. I want to be here, but I'm not getting the attention that I deserve to get. So I'm not going to put in the effort that I'm going to probably should put in. So that might be a big reason to that.
And a Casey, his coaching style is not I'm going to rip into you and I'm going to pick you up when you're down. He's kind of seems like the type, him and Weaver just kind of, if you're down, see you later. We're going to trade you. Where I think a Greg Popovich is very personable. And I think maybe that's what a Sekou needs. He can't have he needs a hands-on coach that when he's feeling down, he needs a guy to pick him up. And I just don't think Casey's that guy.
Yeah. And like going off of me with coaches, all the coaches that I've had in my life here, it's not been long, but you know, I'm the kind of player where if you yell at me, I'm not going to respond in the way that you're going to want me to respond in. I'm going to be like, I don't really respond to that. It's not firing you. It's not exciting me to go out there and play my hardest. But when you talk to me and give me just good advice and be like, hey, do this. You're doing fine. Don't worry. That's the kind of coach where I'm like, yeah, okay, I can do this. I can go out there and give it my all. So I think that's what Sekou kind of looks for, but he never got that. So
Sekou is your second pick. That I'm not too shocked. I think there might be a couple Pistons fans that are down for that. But we'll see. I want people to leave a comment below. Should we have a Sekou reunion? I don't hate it. You kind of got me convinced a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
My second guy is a guy that I've loved since his high school years is Sharife Cooper. He got drafted by the Atlanta Hawks at Auburn. He was all freshman SEC team. He was a one and done. Averaged 20 points, 8 assists, and 4 boards and 1 steal at Auburn. So had a great freshman year at Auburn. It was excelled above everybody else. Played with great guys like JT Thor. And it makes sense that he's in the G League and on his second team in 3 years because NBA-wise, he literally has done pretty much nothing. His rookie year, he averaged 0.3 points, which is not good. No. But it also is hard to come to an organization with a franchise player like Trae Young, and they're both undersized point guards. A team can only have so many undersized point guards. And it just wasn't a great draft situation. Having Sharife automatically, I like this because it automatically puts Killian on an either sink or swim basis. Because if he comes in, we pick him up and he has some good minutes and he's showing that he's a good backup for Cade, then we can know, okay, we can move on from Killian. Because I'm not sold on Killian. I think he's had a better junior year. It's his best season so far. But as far as winning basketball, he just doesn't play winning basketball yet. I think on another team, he might be able to do that with like a over 500 team. But I just don't think he's a player that's going to make us, he's going to be a difference maker for us. Where Sharife, he's shown that he can be a floor general with 8 assists at Auburn. If you watch some of his G League highlights, everybody's moving through Sharife. He controls the game, and not many point guards can do that. And I don't think a point guard like that belongs in the G League. I think a team's got to give him another shot, and I'm just hoping the Pistons might do it.
Yeah, I'd rather have Killian.
Really?
Yeah, but I think for me it comes down to size. So Sharife Cooper is 6'1". He's 180 pounds. That's pretty small.
Yep.
There's a reason why he was drafted in the second round, and there's a reason why he's still in the G League. Not that he's bad, because he's good, but he's not. He's kind of like an Isaiah Thomas, and I'm talking Boston Isaiah Thomas.
Yeah.
The midget Isaiah Thomas. No disrespect. But yeah, I think he's too small for the NBA.
Well, I mean, there's two G League products that you just spoke of, one that are undersized point guards in Fred VanVleet, who I believe was an all-star last year, the season before, and then Isaiah Thomas of the Boston Celtics had a couple seasons where he was an all-star and led the Celtics to like the Eastern Conference Finals one year, which is wild. So Thomas had a slow start, and Fred VanVleet had a slow start to their career, and then once given a second or third chance, they took off and they took advantage of it. A guy like Sharif has always been in the spotlight, so coming into a team like Atlanta and the Cavs, which I don't believe he's had actual NBA games with the Cavs. He's only been on their G League team. But in Atlanta, he's always been the spotlight. So he goes to a team like that, and there's no spotlight at all. It's all Trae Young. It's all John Collins, those kind of guys. And I think if you give him a third chance, really a second chance, I think he's a guy that can pull through because the skill there is just – he's just so good. I just don't think he belongs in the G League.
Yeah.
It's hard.
He is good. But, like, okay, how do I say this? If you give him a chance and he does good, then you win. But let's say he has a situation where you look at the Boston and Cleveland trade with Kyrie and Isaiah Thomas there. Isaiah Thomas gets shipped to Cleveland. What does he do? Absolutely nothing.
Nothing, yeah.
He was just an all-star, and he does nothing.
And that's the thing. If we don't have to trade anything for Sharif, he's on a two-way. He's on an unrestricted free agent. So the thing with Sharif, you pick him up for $1 million or something like that, do a two-way with him, and then we can pull him up for a couple games. If he sucks, we send him down to the G League, and then just let that contract ride out in the G League. It's not. Yeah, it's a piece of our cap space, but heading into the 23 season, I think we have like 23 mil, something like that. I would use a little bit of that. You don't have to give him much. We have guys like Isaiah Livers that were given like 1.3 mil over 2 years. I don't hate a contract like that for Sharif. And if it doesn't work, just send him to the G League, and it doesn't work. And, there is space for a roster for Sharif and Killian to be on a roster, but you also don't want that many point guards just taking up spots.
Especially undersized ones.
Yeah. But I like the odds of him taking off. I also don't know if the Pistons have enough minutes they can give him to actually give him a shot. But it's something I wanted to put out there because the dude is just so talented.
Yeah.
It's fun to watch.
Yeah. Especially at Auburn. That was...
I watched him in the G League, and he hit a game winner for the Atlanta Hawks, his first game in the Summer League. Correct myself. His rookie year, he had a game winner at Summer League, and that whole game, he just you just watch him, and it's like, oh, it's poetry in motion. But then there's the thing, he is undersized, and he's just not able to body guys like Nerlens Noel in the NBA. He just can't do much on those guys.
And then on top of that, you look at matchups. What happens when he has to guard Luka or Ben Simmons?
Well, we have Cade.
Yeah.
And he's also going to be a backup. So he's not really going to have too many minutes with them. But yeah.
But given the situation, if you have to come into a role where you're having to guard these huge point guards that aren't really point guards, but are point guards. What does an undersized guard and Sharif Cooper do against Giannis, who's 6'7", 6'8", around that range?
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to compete there.
What's your third guy there, Ryan?
Enes Freedom, a.k.a. Enes Kanter.
Yeah, Enes.
He knows how to play. He can come off the bench. He can start. Whatever it is, he puts up points. His career averages 11.2 points per game, 7.8 rebounds, 0.9 assists, 0.5 blocks, 0.4 steals, and a field goal percentage of 54%.
Very, very high percentage shooter. He's not going to take dumb shots.
And actually, I was looking at all of his stats compared to everybody else. He is actually one of the most efficient bigs in NBA history.
That's cool.
Which is a crazy stat compared to I mean, you look at all of our Hall of Famers in NBA history, and you look at Enes Freedom, you're like, ew. But, I mean, he's there.
Yeah. Quick question about having Enes is on a roster we have Enes. Is Nerlens Noel also on the roster?
No.
Okay.
I wouldn't have those two together because it'd be taking away minutes from Duren and Stu and Bagley. But I think Freedom there off the bench, coming in as like the 7th, 8th man off the bench, I think he could be a good rotation player.
And, you know, the thing with Bagley, you know, I'm not too worried about people taking minutes from Bagley just because he hasn't proven he can stay healthy. So that's why I don't hate having a guy like Cantor Freedom come on the roster, because that spot has to be filled. And I'm not sold by Nerlens Noel by any means. He's had very limited minutes. And it's funny because we both always dreamed to have a lanky center like that. You know, Mitchell Robinson was somebody I really wanted. And then we finally have him, and I'm just not impressed by the minutes he has shown. He hasn't really done squat. I was kind of hoping for a little bit more. So maybe if we brought in somebody like Enes, he's such a high percentage shooter, he'll make it happen.
Yep. So he drafted in 2011, 3rd overall pick, which
is crazy.
It's crazy to think about because you're like, oh, you're talking about a role player, pretty much, taken 3rd overall. But at that time, I mean, he was very, very highly talked about. He's a 4-time top 20 in rebounds in a single season, which great.
Great, yeah.
4-time top 20 in rebounds per game in a single season. So you look at from that side of things, he's definitely a guy we could use, and we need boards. Stu is undersized for his position. Duren is big. He's proven he can rebound. But having another guy that can come in there off the bench, get those boards.
Because Bagley's not a rebounding big.
No.
I was hoping he would be able to offer that, but he hasn't.
Yeah, Bagley is really just a stretch 4.
Yeah. Well, we're getting a little bit closer to wrapping up. So I'm going to give, I only came up with 3, and then we'll end with your last couple.
Okay.
My last one, I don't know, I don't know if Pistons fans will be happy with this one, just because we've played him in the playoffs, in the early 2000s. But I've always gravitated to this player. My 3rd choice is Dwight Howard, and we were just talking about before the podcast. I think he signed with the Shanghai team.
Yeah.
So it's not. I guess it's not a good possibility of it happening. But I'd like to think, he'd rather play it for an NBA team. But I don't know.
Yeah.
But this is completely based off having him around Stewart and Duren. I just think he'd be a great vet to have in the locker room. I just think our team, having a vocal vet like him too would be great for the Pistons, because every once in a while I'm watching the games and I'm just like, the chemistry seems off. Whenever you see pictures of everybody walking onto the plane, it's like no one's in groups. They're not talking to each other. They're all walking just by themselves. I just think the chemistry is a little bit off with this team. And I see Stewart try to get huddles between fouls and during break and play, but I just don't think it's there. And I think having a guy like Dwight Howard, he's kind of a silly, goofy guy. If you watch him on TikTok, it's all comedy, weird stuff. I just think he'd be a good guy to get in the locker room, hopefully mentor guys like Duren and Stu, and just kind of gel the team a little bit. Because I don't think Cade and Stu are able yet to make a team blend.
See, I think I'll agree with you on that one. I think bringing in Dwight in terms of shot blocking would greatly help Duren, because Duren loves blocking shots, obviously, as we've seen. But then Stu could possibly take him to that next level of, as we talked about last week, being compared to Ben Wallace. That could develop his shot blocking ability, and therefore the comparison would actually be more realistic.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think having a vet coming in to gel the team would be a great, smart move.
And I think he's the guy. I think he's got that personality And plus, I just think it would be cool to see Dwight Howard in a Pistons jersey. Like, it'd just be kind of cool. Like, I don't know, just the little kid in me sees him in the Superman, cape and just seeing him dunk it during the slam dunk contest. It'd be cool to see him in the Pistons jersey.
It would be.
What, real quickly, what were your last other honorable mentions?
Hassan Whiteside.
Oh, he's a free agent?
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know that. He's a big personality, too. Yeah.
Big personality. Great shot blocker.
Yep.
Great shot blocker. He's great on defense, which is why I think we should add him. Because, let's say, Nerlens Noel doesn't work out. I can see that happening.
Yes.
Move him aside. Hassan Whiteside coming in off the bench. We need defense. He's defense. Defense written all over him. That's what he's known for. But he also, career-wise, has averaged 12.6 points per game and 10.8 rebounds per game.
Yeah.
That is pretty darn good. And then my last guy, Tristan Thompson.
Okay. I don't hate that. Yeah. What was the last team he was on?
Sacramento, I believe.
Okay. I don't hate Tristan Thompson. I think he's got some. I think he'd be another vocal guy that would get with the team and get to know everybody and help guys like Stu and Duren. I think you can't really go wrong with a vet big if you're buying into Duren and Stu. Well, I think that's going to do it for today's podcast. That is part 1. Part 2, we are going to be talking about possible trade options for the Detroit Pistons. It might get a little intense. We'll see what the Pistons community thinks about our possible trades. So episode 2, part 1 is done. What do you think, Ryan?
It wasn't big time, but
it wasn't big time?
No.
Why not big time?
I mean, Sharif Cooper.
Maybe. Oh, I love Sharif Cooper.
Was that
man.
Big time?
He's small, but his game is big time. His play style. Maybe part 2 will be big time. We'll see. But that's going to do it for part 1. We will see you guys in part 2. See you later.
Peace.